Hello, welcome to cEDH Pleasure Brews. I'm Tim, and tonight we are continuing our series of beginning cEDH Meta Busters, and we're going to talk about Buster-Raffine Reanimator. But before we get started, please check out our Discord and Patreon. Links are in the description below. And if you like our content, please hit that like, share, subscribe. And tonight, guess who's back? It's my buddy, Brandon.
It's Brandon.
Hi.
Let's go.
How you doing, dude?
I'm all right, man. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to see ya. Oh,
Glad
man,
to be
you're a sight for sore eyes.
That's a good one. That's a good one, right?
Yes. That means like happy to see you. So we're gonna go over something a little spicy tonight.
All right.
I have been kind of eyeballing this commander for a while now.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found a couple of lists earlier today. Wasn't quite too happy with them, so I just like quickly brewed one up. I've got a couple of friends who have been kind of playing around with a couple versions, and this is my twist on it. So Raffine the Schemer, for those of you who don't know, is a 1/4 flyer for black, blue, and white. It's got flying, ward 1, and whenever you attack, target attacking creature convenes X, where X is the number of attacking creatures. And then, so you draw X cards and you discard X cards. And if you discard each non-land card you discard, the target creature will get a +1/+1 counter. All right. So what we have is we have a discard outlet in the command zone. And when you have discard outlets in the command zone, what do you want to do with them? Pitch fatties in the bin and reanimate them, right? But we're also in Esper, so we have to play Consult because we have to be good cEDH players. So just up front, I would like to warn everybody that I do think this deck has some amount of legs because you're in Esper, so you got all the good stuff. My personal list is not tested. I literally just brewed it today and was like so excited. I have seen quite a few lists running around. I haven't seen anything on the database, but I think that this is something that in some version, and it'll probably be pretty similar to my build. I'll show you another build in a minute. Will be some type of Razakat's Reanimator build with Oracle as your win. All right. So without further ado, here's the basic kind of premise for it. I do think that because we're in Esper, we're kind of a slower deck. We're not going to be as fast as our opponents because we don't have red, we don't have green. So we're going to lean real heavy into the free interaction and slim interaction. So we're going to run like Fierce, Flusterstorm, Force of Negation, Force of Will, Pact of Negation. We're going deep. We're going Mind Break Trap. Mental Misstep, Spell Pierce, Swan Song, Offer. Delay is our only 2 mana counter spell, and Dispel. We also have Silence as well. And then we've got some spot removal with like Vanishing Verge, Swords of Plowshares, and Deadly Rollick. Because I like free interaction. If I can play it without actually paying mana for it, that allows me to advance my board state while still keeping up ways to interact. So for the most part, pretty much all of the interaction is going to be 1 mana or 0 in some way, shape, or form. At least as far as the stack interaction is concerned. We're running the standard suite of kind of the good rocks, Crypt, Chrome Mox, Diamond, Vault, LEDs to help us with our Razakath piles, so that way we can have free mana. We're also running Fellware Stone, Talisman, a couple of the Talismans, and Arcane Signet as well. So for our reanimation enchantments, we're going to run the full suite. We're going to run Necromancy, and I'll explain kind of why these are important. Dance of the Dead and Animate Dead. We're also in our Sorcery suite. We're going to run Reanimate. And then to help us open up like some instant speed lines, we're going to play Shallow Grave as well. We are running Entomb as a way to help us bin, because we do want redundant ways to get cards in our graveyard. Another possible card that might be worth running is Windfall as well. And then we've got all the usual tutors. And then we have Tainted Pact, Demonic Consultation, Thassa's Oracle, to box intent, yada, yada, yada. So let's get up to the kind of the spicier stuff. So since we're not the fastest deck in the pod, we're going to run your standard like Cape Air package, Tranth Magistrate, Dathly Voidwalker. We've got Ava Mind Sensor, Ranger Captain, Op Agent, a little bit of Spice, Grim Hireling that helps us control the board, as well as generate some mana with our attackers. Even if it doesn't make the most mana, because we're not going to be swinging with like a really wide board most of the time. So we're probably going to make 2 treasures off of it, but it'll help us do things like pay for casting like a Razaketh or Wandering Archaic, or we can use those to kind of kill off small creatures that are hindering our game plan. We only have 2 targets for Ranger. That's Sierra Ascendant and Esper Sentinel. But they're both really strong, especially in a deck that wants to attack. And then we're running a couple of flash creatures. Archivist of Ogma, Aven, and Op Agent. So that's kind of our disruption package. And then I've gone over the reanimation enchantments. So the thing with Esper is because you're not fast, that's going to give you a little bit of a higher skill floor to really be able to kind of learn when and how to close out the game and not feed all the interaction out of your hand at everybody. Like, what you don't want to do is kind of like the same thing like when I talked about Tasker a couple of weeks ago, where you don't want to just like let everybody bleed all of the interaction out of your hand. Because they will. Everybody's going to cast rituals and docksides and wheels, and you're just going to be like, counterspell. And then they're going to be like, oh, you're the Esper player. You got more of those because you have 2 cards in hand and 3 of those are counterspells. Yes, I did say 2 and then 3. I meant it because that's how people act.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that's nice is because we're a Reanimator deck, when we hit the mid game, it allows us to pivot from a very slim board state with almost no presence outside of our hate bears and our attacking creatures to present a win. Because what we could do is we can get like pretty much 2 tutors will get us, we'll be able to assemble some type of win. Like either tutor up Consult Oracle, we could tutor up like Razaketh and a reanimation enchantment, like discard Razaketh, and then we reanimate it, and then we sack our hate bears and stuff to go get our win. Or the spicy part, which is kind of one of the reasons why I was wanting to play this deck, is that we can play Violent Tumor. Now, what Violent Tumor does is whenever it enters the battlefield, you search your library for a card, put it in your graveyard, and you shuffle your library. So what you do is you tutor up, or you use your commander to cycle you through it, is you get Violent Tumor and a reanimation enchantment. And you get you play the Violent Tumor, and then you bin this guy. Abdel, Adrian, can't even say his name because his art's covering his work. Something of War. So what Abdel does is that when it enters the battlefield, it's going to exile any number of non-land permanents you control. So and then it's going to create a 1/1 soldier token for each permanent exiled this way. And then when it leaves the battlefield, all those permanents come back. So, Brandon, I got a question for you. Does that ability sound similar to a certain other Dargon that we might know about?
Yes.
Do you know what that Dargon is called?
It's not coming to mind right now.
Called Wordgorger Dargon.
Oh, yeah.
With one exception. We don't get yeeted because we're not exiling all of our lands too.
Yeah.
And the way the ability is worded, doesn't matter how that thing leaves play, all of our stuff will come back.
Yeah.
So the way this works is we Violent Tomb Abdel, we reanimate it, it'll come into play. We'll get the trigger, we'll exile the Violent Tumor, and then we'll exile the reanimation enchantment. Okay? When the reanimation enchantment and the Violent Tumor get exiled, we'll get 2/1s. then there will be a sacrifice trigger that will go on the stack because because the Animate Dead will no longer be present.
Mm-hmm.
Abdel will be sacrificed, go back to the graveyard. Then our Violent Tumor and our Animate Dead will come back into the battlefield. We will have 2 triggers. We will have the ability to reanimate a creature in our graveyard, and we'll have the ability to tutor up a card out of our graveyard and put it in the bin. So basically what will happen is, and shout out to Scoots for showing me this pile. He plays this in his Razakats build, and it's been really hot, like really hot. I've been liking it. That's why I stole it. But basically what will happen is that will allow us to entomb our entire library in our graveyard, including our Thassa's Oracle. And then on the last iteration of the loop, we just used that reanimation enchantment to get our Oracle and win the game.
Yeah. That's right? Insane.
Yeah. So we don't actually have to cast the spell. So if we wanted to, we could play it under like Rule of Laws. We could play it under stuff like that. And be able to assemble a win. Now, you can't play it like if you did the Violent Tumor and then did like that takes a couple of turns, but like let's say you're using hold on, I gotta scroll down here to the bottom. Deafening Silence. Deafening Silence allows you to play 1 non-creature spell per turn. So we could play that. That would play under Deafening Silence. And then
it plays under a lot of really good stacks, and that's crazy. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Yeah. So my configuration doesn't have stacks, but some of the other builds do. A lot of the other builds I thought were a little too deep. Mine's probably not deep enough to be fair. But what's nice about this is this gives you another very clean way to just kind of set up a 2-card combo and win the game. And then for those of you at home, if for some reason your Oracle's offline, you can always use Labman as your backup. You will need a draw trigger, just so you know. But, you know, our commander's a draw trigger. We've got Ledger Shredder. We've got Archivist. We've got Esper Sentinel. We have Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora. Like, we can make it happen.
Yeah.
And if not, we just wait till our next turn. So, the other thing is if for some reason that doesn't seem like the line you want to go with, we also have Razaketh, and we are running 22 creatures plus our commander makes 23. So we generally will have at least 1 or 2 cards for sack fodder. You could optionally add Loris and do like the Razaketh line with Loris and then assemble. But I just thought it was cleaner to do the Abdel or Vile Entomber and then get the Abdel. But with Razaketh, we can sack a couple of our creatures. We can go get like LED. And then as long as we have like one black source, that will allow us to be able to just consult Oracle manually if we needed to without all the extra hoops. But the Violent Tumor is nice because we can kind of slide it under the radar. The other thing is if you actually tutor up like a Necromancy, you can just play the Violent Tumor, set up, and then when somebody tries to do something, like tries to win, then you just flash in your Necromancy, get your Abdel back, and you can win like that. So that is something to be aware of.
Winning at instant speed is always a good time.
It requires setup, but, you know, it's a thing.
Yeah.
So, I think this is going to be, like, it is just kind of another Esper deck, but I think the twist on it is that you get the card filtering with Raffine, and that's nice. And then before we go, I wanted to highlight one other list. It is a little more dated than mine. Just hasn't been updated in like 2 months. And this is from Fervent Alchemist, also known as Kai, from the Spellseekers. And his build's a little bit different. He is running Razaketh, but he's doing the Lurus lines. He does talk about him in his primer, but essentially it's kind of the same thing where you use Luris and LED to kind of go mana positive with your reanimation effects, because most of them cost 1 or 2 mana, with the exception of Necromancy. And then at the end of that, you have enough mana left over because you've been tutoring each time to assemble Consult Oracle. And then you use the mana from the leftover the excess mana from the LED to assemble your Oracle Consult Win. He is also running Doomsday as well. I opted to take it out. Okay, so I will link Kai's list in the description. He definitely has like a more in-depth primer of how to like the deck strengths and weaknesses. I do kind of want to reiterate that you're not going to be the fastest deck in the pod, so that will give you a little bit of a challenge. But being an Esper, you have a lot of good tools, and to be honest, Raffine as well as Ledger Shredder, they get really big really quick. And my list is packed with a lot of stack interaction because I tend to play in like a more Grixis-centric meta. So it tends to be real fast, just a lot of dock sets. But it will reward your play skill, and it does have some lines that aren't blatantly obvious and can allow you to kind of gain some edge points against your opponents. So with that, I would like to say thank you again for joining me. It's good to have you back. And everybody have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.